Hey, what's good? Peace world. This is Wood. Thanks for pressing play, or anybody that may check in on this on the live stream tonight. But I just wanted to jump in here for a few minutes and get back to the Shy. Think I missed about 2 episodes, so let me check on something real quick. Just want to make sure I'm set up on something just in case anybody checks in. I just got to do this little check to make sure what the hell is making it over from this program that I use to the live stream. Get this going real quick. Okay, so the chat is working. All right, so that's me up there at the top. Yeah, okay. So let's get to it. Down here on the scroll, this week's episode was called Leg Up. Kind of confused as to what it really refers to. And then my question, I guess, and I did a video, I believe, on the, it might have been on my Instagram page. I was driving back from traveling this weekend and went live on Instagram, which I normally don't do. But since I can't mobile live stream on YouTube, I just was trying to stay active and stay awake. But anyway, my question there was, who's still in on the show? And will there be, a season 3? And I don't say this negatively or just for the sake of being negative. I don't wish any ill will on the show. I think it is some fans out there. But it doesn't seem like it has the buzz of other shows, especially other shows aimed at urban audiences and whatnot. So I don't know. I don't have a great feeling that it's going to survive. I just did a little scan on YouTube, on Google before live streaming. I don't really see much coverage. I don't see too many writers doing anything with it. I follow a couple of other entertainment sites such as Collider.com. Of course, they don't cover too many urban themed shows or urban aim shows or whatever, shows for black folks. I just don't see, so of course I wasn't going to see anything there, but it just doesn't seem to be picking up much steam, such as shows like The Wire, or definitely not a show like Power, which has been pretty well received. And I regularly hear a variety of different people, even people in my office, have talked about Power over the last couple of years. But it just seems like the Shy is really struggling to really gain traction. And I don't know. I guess let me get into it real quick. This week I really could only find an image for Kevin on this show. I mean, I think he's the sole bright spot on the entire show. And it seems like the writers, directors, and Lena Waithe herself, the creator of the show, it seems like they hover around Kevin or Kev, but they really don't know what the hell to do with him. And I've mentioned this in previous recaps that it's trying to do a lot here on a Sunday night to make a show and base it around a group of kids on one hand, and then on the other hand, you got all this adult stuff going on, and I really don't know how it all works, and I don't know how it keeps people tuned in. But this week it came out that Kev is actually pretty intelligent, which we had already picked up on this, leading up to this point. But his teacher tried to pull him to the side, and after some standardized testing went down and his scores came back higher than his GPA, his teacher, who seems to show an interest in him, he pulled him to the side and said, take this envelope home to your mother. You need some place that will push you and will, stretch you a little bit and get you up to speed for, to maximize your potential. And my wife looks at me and said immediately and was like, why the hell would you give this to the kid? Why wouldn't you just send it to the mother or contact the mother? And of course, Kevin goes out into the hallway, opens up the envelope. It's some documents or some literature for a special academy of some sort. And of course, he walks to the closest trash receptacle and dumps it. And so again, with some silver lining in this episode, with some glimmer of hope and something to look forward to on the show, with him throwing that literature into the trash can, just dashed the hopes of there being anything really positive on The Chi. Like I said, week to week, I don't know who we tune in to really root for. Still the situation with Brandon and Ronnie, there hasn't been, Ronnie is a free man for a couple of episodes now. There's no, Brandon has done very little to go see him, or there's really no mentioning of Ronnie by Brandon. So I just really, I'm trying to like the show, and at times it has warm moments and heartfelt moments. It does, and I thought this week, with looking at Emmett's situation, with him trying to work out things with his three with his three baby mamas, or baby moms, or whatever the phrase is. You see them coming together over a couple of different scenes, and they finally reach an impasse to where they will get their foot up off of Emmett's neck, and he agrees, to do the best that he can while he's unemployed, and trying to make this venture with this joint venture with Brandon, whatever it's gonna be. So I guess that was a warm moment. Finally, young people weren't cussing each other out and at each other's throat, and the women acted very mature and were understanding, and not like they had much of a choice in this situation. But like I said, Emmett continues to show flashes of being having some hustle about him and being a pretty bright guy, but by the end of the show is usually all for naught. So let me get into about 5 points I got real quick. Brandon at the aftertaste, we finally see the after, and that's another thing that really, first thing that pisses me off. Brandon at this aftertaste runs into his old boss, or the head chef or owner, and I think the place was called Truffle, but one of the hottest restaurants in Chicago. That guy was also a student, I believe, at this school, the culinary school that Brandon attended, and he runs into him in the well, actually, I guess they reconnected an episode ago, but the guy comes over to Brandon and tells him, here's the guy that screwed my wife, and Brandon turns around and sees him, and he's like, "Oh, you think I didn't know about that?" And again, I hate when writers in writer rooms do important things completely off camera, completely off script. Like, how does he know? Did his wife, is it his ex-wife? I mean, he knows about it, but yet is he still with her? Did she break down and tell him? Did she come home and do something that gave it away? Like, how does he know? But it just pops up that he knows. Okay, so then we get to the cooking contest, and you knew Brandon was going to F this up. You knew he was going to find a way to screw this thing up. But we know that he needed this money too, this $5,000. We knew that he needed it. And so again, he goes through his cooking situation. He gets his entree that he has to make, which said something. The description was neo soul. That was right up in his wheelhouse. So he prepares his dish, and of course he comes in. Oh, and then the guy tried to the guy tried to intimidate him or get him off his game by telling him, well, we can only have this if we had one black face. You know, we needed one black face to make it into the final three for it to be legit in today's politically correct world, you know. So Brandon is sitting here tripping off of that briefly, but you know, he submits his dish, and I think they come back later on, and his boss wins the money, and you know, receives all the notoriety for winning this contest. And before Brandon leaves out, and the guy had a judge, one of the judges was actually a friend of his that shook his hand, that shook the other chef's hand in front of Brandon. And Brandon realizes, you know, he feels like the deck is stacked against him because his competition, you know, a friend of his is part of the judges. So they come around and they taste the entrees. The other chef wins, and before Brandon leaves the stage, or you know, gets ready to exit the whole contest, he decides to take a bite out of the entree that the chef turned in, and then he runs over to him, and he's like, you know, you stole my dish. So I come right back to it again. They did that completely off camera. We had no idea how the judging process even took place in the semifinal. In the first round, they came over to his plate, and they to Brandon's cooking station and tasted it right in front of him. But here, somehow, how in the hell would you sit here and let your dish get swapped around with somebody else's dish? That just made no sense. And if his dish was supposed to be neo soul, and the other guy had a different type of dish that he was supposed to make, then how did he give it? You know, how did it get twisted up? So to me, that's a major error for me. I'm sorry, man. I'm watching this stuff. I'm paying attention, and then you have glaring weaknesses or lapses like that in the writing. So that whole scene right there just ticked me off for the episode. But of course, like I said, Brandon is a screw up. He rarely is on the ball, and constantly everything he tries to do fails miserably. The second thing was leads into that, contributes to my second point, was Otis Perry, or Dauda, lures Brandon in for it seems like they've called him a fish, where it appears that I thought he was going to bring him into the organization and use him to wash money. You know, being that he's a food truck, he's traveling around. I thought they were either going to have him transporting product, or I thought they were going to just use him as a way to wash the money. But like I said last week, or in the other live stream that I did on Instagram, Brandon, in my opinion, was way too stupid to make that last for a month, for 2 weeks, before he would have screwed that up. And Dauda is already having problems with Reg effing things up. So I didn't even think that was going to happen. But it looks like we learned by the end of this episode, they're actually going to put some money into Brandon and make him appear to be he's going to have money or assets that he can't really show how he got it. And I guess they're going to hand him over to the Detective Toussaint somehow. I guess that's where we're going with that. And again, so because Brandon doesn't get this money from this truck, and he gets into this argument with his girlfriend Jerica, who made some deal, some $50,000 deal with this alderman, Brandon gets ticked off, and he needs to get a win for himself. So he goes and seeks out Dauda, or Mr. Perry, at his restaurant, and he asks for help. He's tired of struggling, but he just doesn't know. Like I said, they don't have his best interest in mind. And if you looked at the previews, they go ahead and somehow they get him a second truck that's fully dressed up, for a food truck. And then they mentioned something that he would give him $10,000, what actually was committed, the commitment that was made in this particular episode. So we'll see where that goes. My next point, like I already mentioned this in the beginning, was Emmett reaches an impasse with his baby mothers or baby moms, all three of them. I'm not gonna stay on this and beat this one with a dead horse, but the question for me is, like, how old is Emmett? At times they have him running around like he's 20 or 21, but then we see that he was only his Jada tells Ronnie that his son or her son is only a couple years or a year or so older than the kid that Ronnie shot. So it's almost like he's 18 or 19, I guess. But he doesn't go to school. But he has 3 baby mamas already. That's what I was getting at. Again, this show just seems to have us the worst in everybody. Like, damn, you have 3 baby mothers already and you just 19 years old, which, is what his dad's done basically. But like I said, man, nobody on this show has you tuning in week to week envious of their station in life. The next point was Ronnie and Jada have a moment. Of course, I've been saying this all the last year, man. Like, Ronnie is just a POS. I mean, he's just straight up scum. We have, over the last 2 or 3 episodes, we've started to learn why he is the way that he is and how he got here, and that post-traumatic stress disorder or whatever probably played a part in it. Now we're starting to see that there were some things that went on in his childhood that he's walking around with. He's also dealing with the guilt of killing his kid and being reintroduced back into a neighborhood that's slowly trying to figure out how to embrace him or how to interact with him after the fact. And that's part of my problem with the show, is that they've really failed to really do anything with this whole storyline with him killing an innocent child. And it's almost like a deal breaker for even continuing to watch the show, in a way. I mean, if you really thought about it. Yeah, I mean, that's just something that's just like, I can't get over the fact of how that's being handled. And the fact that there's no, basically very little, if any, repercussions for him doing what he did. But here it is again. Like I said, the man has been unable to express himself, to explain what's going on. He continues to run away from everything. Another thing that I just struggle with on the show, with him in particular, how does this man eat? How does this man function? Like, he doesn't go to work. They try to throw him a job. Jada tried to throw him a job working with this real estate guy, cleaning up properties and whatnot. That's about the best that he could hope for. He went to that for one day or half a day and quit that. What's his name? Rafiq Common's character tried to have him doing some stuff at his outreach building, but of course that was working for free. And then they had him out doing something with this vehicle where he pulled out his toolbox, and they hint around that he's somewhat of a handy guy, or good with his hands or something, or has a basic understanding of how, basically a handyman. But the dude is just worthless, man. Like, who wants to take their Sunday night and tune into a character who has no get up and go about him? Like, you might have wanted to, at some point, you might have wanted to be James St. Clair, Ghost. You might, you know what I'm saying? You wanted to tune in each week. He doing his thing with Angie. He's slick with his in the streets with the dope game. He's decisive. He's smart. He's hustling. He's doing his thing at the club. He has all the answers. You can tune in to Ghost each week and escape for an hour. Or even if you wanted to, if you like silly Tommy. I mean, you can find some different things in Tommy. But I'm just saying, this brother right here, Ronnie, for him to be a leading character in this show, man, the brother is just crazy depressing. And he just can't seem to get it together. So, but anyway, he has this moment with Jada where, he goes over and takes the job. He's grateful that Jada took the time to look out for him and try to help him. And then he goes over there and gets to work and comes across an envelope that basically he finds out that this man that lived across the street from him and his mother all these years with a family, that man was also his father. And so once he reads this letter and puts two and two together that his mother was involved with this married man that had another family, and the guy kind of made some promises to his mother that he didn't keep. It kind of looked for a minute like it was getting ready to say that Ronnie had been sexually assaulted by the man. That's kind of what they were alluding to with some of the flashbacks, was that maybe he had been molested, and that was another issue that he has going on in that head of his. But it just came out to be that man was really his father. So of course he runs from this situation and shells all up again. But Jada approaches him and admonishes him, and tells him, you got to do something. You got to be about something. And so she gets him to get. He says, "Well, okay, come with me for a second." And I'm like, "Oh, this brother is finally gonna open up his damn mouth and express what's going on, and let somebody know what the hell is wrong with him." And he just takes her over to the house and shows her what he learned, and they just kind of have a minute together. And she empathizes with his situation and kind of what the hell is wrong with the brother, besides the fact that he's walking around with this cloud of guilt over him. So my last point was, of course, we spend quite a bit of time with Keisha, getting to know Keisha this episode. And of course, we meet yet another creep on the show, yet another POS on the show. And it's this brother who comes out of nowhere, and he has a really nice vehicle. He's basically too old for Keisha. Again, we don't even know what age Keisha is. We don't even know what grade she is in school. And the funny thing here is that last year we actually saw Keisha like completely nude, being involved with Emmett, having sex with Emmett. And they showed her fully nude, and here we are as an audience watching a girl who now we know is like 15 to 17 years old. So that was another issue that I had with the show, was like how that was handled. We just saw a couple weeks ago on, in contrast, we just saw a couple of weeks ago on Game of Thrones where they showed, they went on and had before the long night episode, before the war up at Winterfell, Arya went on and forced the issue with Gendry, and they had sex because everybody kind of wanted to do what they hadn't done in their life before they faced the army of the dead the next day. And they showed nudity, semi-nudity with Arya, and we don't really know how old Arya is, but they did the whole side boob thing and just showed her. They did show quite a bit of her, but the way that the camera was angled, you didn't see, nipples and whatnot and all of that. But last year, we just saw everything about Keisha. And like I said, now here it is a year later, a season later, and I'm finding out that this girl is anywhere from, I wanted maybe 16 at the youngest. But again, I don't know, man. Some of those decisions don't really sit well with me. But that's just me being me. But we find this track coach And we didn't know who he was at the beginning of the episode. We just think that he's an older guy in the neighborhood, and maybe he's, in the game based on the vehicle that he drives. But we get to the end of the episode, and we actually learn that the guy that she's messing around with is, in fact, her track teacher or track coach. I'm sorry. And so, again, we got another dude who's, some kind of deviant, some pervert. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not stupid, and I'm not naive. A lot of these situations, take place in the neighborhood regularly. I mean, it's happening all over the place. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying that the world, this isn't, this is far fetched. It's not. But again, it's just like, what's going to be the positive aspects of the show, or what's going to be the redeeming part of taking us through all of this sadness and all of this struggle and strife? What's the positive takeaway here at the end of the day? Other than that, man, I really didn't have much more to get into. What's my time? Ran long again. Usually I do read the synopsis, so let me get into it real quick. Like I said, the episode was called A Leg Up. It does look like it. I don't even know if this is a rating for this season or a rating for this particular episode, but it is at an 8.6 out of 10. And the synopsis was: Brandon competes in the finals of the aftertaste food competition. Emmett tries to smooth things over with the women in his life. Kevin and Jake get into a fight. Ronnie and Jada grow closer after a family secret comes to light. So that's everything. That was mainly the bullet points that I just talked through. Again, man, it's a bit of a depressing show, man. And like I said, I come down here to the bottom. I'm on IMBD.com. There is no contributions made by there's no user reviews. There's no activity or interaction from fans of any sort. But in comparison, if I go over to Billions, which is a little bit of a better received show, a little better. It's a lot better. It's a more popular show. Usually they only have like one or two comments on their episode. So I guess in that regard, it's not such of a problem. But there's also another storyline mentioned. I'll read this real quick. But again, Emmett tries to smooth things over with the women in his life. Kevin and Jake get into a fight. I believe that's their second one this season. And then while Kevin's friendship with Maisha blossoms.